On today's episode, we have the wonderful Tech Tai. You're going to learn her proven strategies on how to be a unicorn BDR or SDR, as she has attained a whopping 130% quota. Can you imagine that? 130%. And how she does this is she actually creates a scalable process on how to be organized, right? Which ultimately helps you crush your own quota. So your success is our success. So let's get started.
From the heart of Silicon Valley in beautiful San Francisco, California, welcome to the Sales Life podcast with Marcos and Andy.
Awesome. Glad to be back on another episode of Sales Life. Today we have the wonderful Tech Tai. Tech Tai, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Marcos, for having me. Hello, everyone out there in podcast world, in the socially distanced world that we live in. Nice to meet you all.
Awesome. Tech Tai is awesome. And, when we first met, I was just blown away about how she goes about her process. And so today we're really going to give the audience some really valuable insights, specifically related to how kind of Tech Tai gets organized to produce these crazy results. But I know the audience wants to know a quick background on you. So we'll start with some rapid fire intro questions. For Tech Tai. What company are you currently working at?
Well, Marcos, I currently work at Nacelle, and Nacelle is a provider of headless architecture or headless e-commerce, which is basically decoupling, which is the decoupling the front end from the back end. We live in a world that there's a lot of legacy software that is monolithic. So end to end, front to back is just one solution. If the front breaks, then the back breaks. If the back breaks, then the front breaks. But now we are moving to a world of microservices where you pick and choose what systems work for you. So I work at Nacelle.
Awesome. And I'm pretty sure it sounds like a very technical product, dealing with, microservices. So curious on your end, what's your role and kind of the size of your team right now at Nacelle?
Absolutely. So I am a BDR or business development representative. I am a part of the founding team, the founding sales team at Nacelle, which started out with just 5 people. So my VP of sales, one account executive, a senior account executive, a senior sales engineer, and my colleague and I were hired within a few days of each other as the founding BDRs on the team. He started right away, and I started in January of 2021. So I'm officially 5 months into this role, and I'm a career changer. So I've never formally sold within a sales funnel before. I've sold in other capacities in my job, but never solely as a BDR or SDR.
Wow. So I'm sure a lot of learnings there. Founding sales team, you're probably building something from the ground up. And, I always think, because I've always wanted to, eventually I'll be a founding AE, I think, in, one of my years in the future. But I always respect those that kind of take that jump, because you just learn so much, right? And I think that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today, is like a problem that you saw and kind of how you continue to improve. I'm curious though, real quick, as far as, can you tell the audience like what personas you're kind of chasing after? And are you primarily like inbound? Are you outbound? Are you both?
Absolutely, Monica. So, as a founding member of this 5 person team, as of right now, today of our filming, it is Friday, May 7th, and our team has grown to 11 people. We now have 2 account executives, we have a partnerships person, and I also have a BDR manager, didn't have a manager when we first started, as well as we have a more robust team. So, in approximately 2 weeks, the BDR team is going to grow 100% from 2 people to 4 people.
Wow.
So when you say that, you think that this is a huge leap, it definitely is, because I like startup. I've worked in startup before, and I like having the opportunity to create processes and procedures, which is very specific to the background that I had prior to becoming a BDR. So I knew that whether I was provided the structure or not to do what I do, I knew that I had certain skills that I would leverage from my past career.
Mm,
So as a BDR on this team at Nacelle, I primarily do both inbound and outbound. To start with, it was expected to be majority inbound. Um, I think approximately about 60% was what was forecasted for inbound. Uh, no, let me change that. Let's say 55% was forecasted for inbound, and then like 25% was forecasted for outbound to start, and then the remainder was referrals from our partner companies as well as the investors. So we just recently finished our first quarter of the year. Our fiscal year is from February through January.
okay.
So this past Friday, April 30th, was the end of our first quarter. And as we did the wrap up a couple of days ago in this first week of May, we realized that what we forecasted had definitely changed by the end of our quarter, where it was more so like half and half between inbound and outbound,
Um,
and the percentage of referrals was really slim in terms of what the pipeline we brought in. So I am tasked with qualifying the inbound leads that come through our website. I don't deal with referrals. Any referrals that come in are normally forwarded to our partnerships manager. And I am also tasked with creating an outbound funnel. And my outbound funnel is specific to e-commerce because that's who we target.
mhm.
And you asked me about personas. So the personas that we're going after are more so the technical buyer. That's anyone who is a CTO or chief technology officer,
Mm,
or CIO, chief information officer, a CPO, chief product officer, and more so in the C suite, as well as those decision makers. So, depending on the size of the company, you may have a CTO, a CIO, and CPO, but sometimes you just may have someone who has a simple title like e-commerce manager.
yeah.
And that e-commerce manager on the outside looking in might seem like more of a business buyer, but when you actually do the discovery and you evaluate the size of the company, the amount of monies that they're actually bringing in annual revenue, and you do a little bit more of a deep dive, and I love the deep dive on LinkedIn and or LinkedIn Navigator, you might see that that e-commerce manager could also be a very technical person,
Wow.
you know,
Wow.
that you
Mhm.
may not actually expect. And that's why discovery is so important. And more specifically, this role as a BDR or SDR in some of the organizations.
Yeah, I mean, so this is good. This is actually the first time we have, a salesperson on our show that's actually selling into the technical buyer persona, right? Yeah, so Tech Tai, first one. But I always tell everyone because I work at Okta, right? Technical buyer, IT, product engineering, right? It's
Mhm.
totally different sell than going into sales and marketing. It's actually, I feel like one of a tougher sell, right? Because
I
you
could see
really
that.
have to kind of know the technology and how it works because you're going to get grilled on the phone about that.
Mhm.
Um, but anyways, I'm just curious, right? Because when you and I were both talking, I always like to understand kind of like the best quarter, our guests have. And I was pretty like blown away, but I'll kind of let you tell the audience what like the best month or quarter you had from a sales quota perspective.
Well, once again, Marcos, I am new to this, and everyone out there, once again, I am new to this. So I am now in my fifth month uh, at Nacelle as of the time of this recording, May 2021. And I started in January, as I previously mentioned, and the entirety of January was my onboarding. I had my ramp starting February, so I only had to bring in 50% of my overall quota. And then as of March, I was expected to bring in my entire quota.
Okay.
So my quota is $210,000 in overall pipeline that is inclusive of inbound and outbound.
Mm,
My very first month on my ramp, February 2021, I brought in 78% of my quota with
Okay.
$152,500. The very first week in February, I, as well as my counterpart, was asked to um, target a few priority one accounts
Okay.
and kind of ghost write some email outreach for our CEO, who's also a product architect as well as founder, to send
Oh,
out.
yeah.
I ghost wrote an email for him that had some personalization in it, and he sent it out unmodified. Later on that day, he received a reply, which led to a meeting with the director of engineering at a very large health and wellness firm, which
Oh,
ultimately turned into $100,000 deal for one email.
wow. What email?
I hadn't even set up my campaigns, no sequences, nothing. So in the very first week of February, my first week out of my onboarding in January, I ghost wrote an email that turned into a meeting with the technical buyer, the director of engineering, which turned into $100,000 deal.
Wow.
Beginner's luck? I think not.
Well,
That was
that's why
the
we
start,
that's why
and it
you're
was
on the
outbound.
show. Outbound, I mean, that's what we call the holy grail, right? You reach out to a large enterprise, a top tier one account, outbound, get the meeting, turns into a big deal. Like it's such a great feeling.
Really
Um,
was. So
right? I mean, you probably felt like, over the moon, right? And so does your CEO and your manager, right? So it's
yeah,
pretty awesome.
so I definitely am getting to answer your question. I haven't forgotten. So I actually won the first spiff or bonus before it was even announced. I was in a
Okay.
meeting with my VP of sales because we didn't have a BDR manager yet. My colleague and I, and he was telling us that there was going to be a spiff of $250 for any outbound outreach with a technical buyer that turned into a meeting.
Oh,
And by the end of that meeting, we both heard through our Zoom meeting, um, a Slack notification, and the meeting happened. And at the same time, and I had won the SWIP. So it was confirmed right then and there, right after he announced it. So
wow.
a week later, I am very responsive via email. There was an inbound opportunity with another large company, not the same size as the one outbound. So that turned into more pipeline for approximately 500, excuse me, 500, 52,000 and a half $1,000.
Yeah.
So
So
in
you're
the
crushing.
very first month of February, 78% of quota. Now, getting to answer your question, I'm so sorry, but I want to give you some lead
Context.
into all of this.
I give you context. Yeah, I get
Yes.
it.
So as of February, the first week in February, I started building out my cadences, but like I told you, I had not reached out to anyone yet. So I built these cadences because I knew that my new manager was coming on board the first week in March.
Mm.
And I did not just want to say, oh, these are my ideas. This is kind of what I want to do. I wanted to have some actual metrics. So I built several campaigns based on the verticals that I noticed. So I was looking at health and wellness, but there were some subcategories like nutrition. And nutrition for me was like dietary supplements and such, or like food or certain retail products going along with it, cookware and stuff like that. So just giving you some examples. I've probably built about 6 different campaigns that were bisected with technical buyer and business buyer messaging. So I told you I started this at the beginning of February. When my manager started in the first week of March, the very next weeks, literally 6 weeks after I had initiated my actual first email campaigns,
Okay.
they hit. And my biggest month was March, which was my actual first quota carrying month. And I achieved $445,000
Wow.
in pipeline for a total of 212% of quota.
Wow. 212% is ridiculous, but goes to show how good you are, right? And thanks for the context there, right? Kind of really painting the picture of kind of how it started, and then you're just kind of doing these ad hocs, and then all of a sudden you got organized, right?
Yeah.
You came up with a campaign, and then all of a sudden it goes from 78% to 212% quota. Like that is awesome. So I'm curious, Tech Tai, like you've been in this role what, 5 months? You've been learning a lot. Um, Curious to see, like, what are some problems that probably have arose. I know we're focused on like getting organized, but I'm sure you probably saw a few problems, and kind of how we'll get into like the solutions, but just kind of wanted to focus on some of the problems that you see early on.
Absolutely. And I just like to reframe. I didn't really see them as problems. I just saw them as areas for improvement.
Mm,
So as we started this conversation, we talked about the nature of startup. And the nature of startup is that there you are literally building the engine for a plane while you're flying it, you
I
know?
like that.
And like
Yeah.
you are you're in a train and you are building the track as you're driving the train. So it's very important to be conscious of not only iterating and building new things, but being conscious of the things that you built yesterday and the consequences of those things. And that translates to change management.
Mm,
And I find a lot of companies, big, medium, small, very varied sizes, um, don't always think about change management. And because my background is in program in the 4 P's: product, project, program, and project management, change management is something I always think about. So, one area that I really highlighted that I needed to focus on is a change management. So, every single week, really, um, our ICP was changing.
oh,
So,
interesting.
I don't know how much I'm able to really divulge, and I won't divulge too much, but the ICP changed. Our personas were the technical buyer,
Mhm.
director of engineering, as I mentioned, the CPO, CIO, and such. But who we were targeting, the company, that really changed. So for me, and I'll get into this when we talk about solutions, that was one key area that I needed to highlight. So
Mm,
my also pipeline could have been a lot larger based on the fact that one week it was this, and then we really synthesized and distilled it down as we were finding more success. And they were finishing up deals that preceded me and my colleague as the first BDRs, and getting wins and also learnings from those deals, and also looking at what we were bringing in. So
yeah.
change management. Another place that I would say I had noticed an area for improvement.
Yep.
Pardon me, my nose is starting to, and I'm
Hey,
like, oh my
no,
goodness, I'm on camera.
got the allergies going. It's okay. I think we're all in that boat as well.
I'm on camera. Don't touch your face.
No worries. I mean, I do that all the time, and then it becomes a wildfire, sneezing, all this stuff. So I get it.
Welcome to spring in our homes.
Exactly. Spring in our homes. Exactly.
Yeah. So
Um,
another place that I noticed was an area of improvement that stood out to me
mm,
is that we had no real direction on outbound outreach. As I mentioned, we were part of the founding team. So I got a chance to really be as creative as I wanted to be, and that creativity actually worked out really well for me with creating those campaigns and trying different things before my manager actually came on board. And I told you I had actual things to show her. Like this turned into a meeting. This turned into a meeting. What I said, what I wrote here. And I also have to say this, that 212% of quota in March,
mhm.
that all came without a single phone call.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
That was inbound, me being very, very responsive, and outbound, me having the creativity and playing around with personalization Like I like emoji. I think emoji is for the workplace and can be very appropriate because I mean, I'm an older millennial and we've been using
Mhm.
emoji for years. Like
Of course,
it's
yeah.
it's just not it's not all just peaches and eggplants people.
It
There's
is.
a lot of productivity tools, I
Yeah.
use a lot of charts. Well, that's a part of the solutions. I'll get there. But, I saw that there was a place to be creative
Oh,
on
interesting.
the outbound side and being very responsive on the inbound side. And I had no direction. So I did whatever I wanted to do and it bore fruit. And another thing is that there were no established methods, processes, and procedures. So once again, um, based on my background of being in project and program manager management, as well as having technical developer skills, I started building my own tools. It's
Mm,
not enough to utilize outreach. That's a software like Salesloft to capture, sales engagement and such and
mhm,
activities. It's not enough to have that. It's not enough to just have Salesforce, which is another database that should work well with integrating outreach or Salesloft for the activities. That's not enough. Um, we have to understand as people that these are just tools, they're implements. They're only as good as the effort you put into utilizing them and knowing the tool job fit. Like
mhm.
Salesforce is a wonderful tool. I've been using Salesforce since 2011. Love it, love it, love it, love it.
Yeah.
But you have to understand that there's a hard and fast rule with Salesforce that it's hard and fast to me, but I still don't think a lot of people, well, the majority of people and users know is that garbage in, garbage out. Golden, gold out. You have to be very intentional about what you put into Salesforce. A lot of people like, oh, this thing doesn't work, or whatever technology is not working well, because you have to be intentional about what you put into it by thinking about what you want to synthesize and get out of it. You just can't
Mm,
put anything in there and think that you can run a report and get actual information. So data is everything around us. Information is when you apply a filter of relevancy to data, then you have like then you know what everything is,
mhm,
so that's why it's called a data or database because it holds everything.
mhm.
So for me, that's another area. Those three areas is where I saw there was a need for improvement. The ICP constantly changing, as well as no real direction on how I should be approaching my outreach, whether inbound and outbound, as well as no established methods or processes or procedures specific to how I needed to do the BDR role. So I took advantage of that and I found solutions for all three of those things, which led to my success.
Yeah. And I just want to take some time here because you talked about really three things, right? Change management, process improvement, right? Number one, change management. Number two, there's really was no direction on outbound, and the other one was really no process. But like I can't emphasize this enough because there is a lot of startups out there and a lot of people are going through this, right? So kind of take me to your mindset, right? I know you have a solution, but like early on, is it frustration or is it, oh, I need to solve this problem, or like what's kind of going through your mindset? Because I think you have a good growth mindset. I just want to make sure the audience kind of hears kind of how you approached it.
Well, thank you very much for that compliment, Marcos. My mindset is one of growth. It's one of abundance. It's one of resourcefulness. So I never come from a place of scarcity. There is enough for and more than enough for everyone. There is no need for scarcity. Like I don't need to see what my colleague is doing and try to like go in his space and grab leads or this thing. There's none of that. So I never even thought about that. I focused on myself and I focused on the fact that at this point, the lack of structure just kind of kicked into drive what I already do, which is creating processes and procedures. So started out with simple things. As a software engineer, you learn about a knowledge base. So I'm someone who will, if I know that I'm doing the same process over and over every single month, I will write a macro, simple thing in Microsoft Excel, or I realize that something is happening all the time, then I will go ahead and search in like the Chrome marketplace for an extension, because some wonderful developers already built a plugin that's for free that I can just download and have a solution. So I think about that, and I think about like the lowest hanging fruit. The lowest hanging fruit for me was now realizing that after I finished my onboarding, that my day was my own. I was expected to produce results and was told to go ahead, find a way to produce results. So I blocked out my calendar and I created a system for myself, like the lowest hanging fruit. What am I going to do with this day? I
Yeah.
needed 30 minutes in the morning to get prepared. So from 9 a.m. to 9:30, I have preparation time, you
So
know?
did you like write out? Because I remember when I was an SDR way back when, just kidding. And my director was like, hey, we gotta replicate you, double you. So can you write out like a schedule? So I literally would write out everything I do, like 9 to 9:30, check data, 10 to 10:30, cold call. Is that what you're doing?
Yes, it is exactly what I'm doing. So I just created those events in my calendar, 9 to 9:30 preparation time. That's for me to review any notes that I made to end the day, the previous day. And then from 9:30 to 11:30, there was focus time,
Mm.
and that can mean anything having to do with outreach. That could be calls, emails, LinkedIn, and stuff like that. I had a standard time for lunch, 12 to 1, and that you can always move around, but having it on there gives you a presence that you need to break, that you need to eat, or that you need to reserve that time to do some other things that maybe note taking later on and such like that.
Mm.
So I standardized my calendar, and from there, like that was the lowest hanging fruit. I can now see how I'm going to start my day or have my entire day. So I can think about the next thing, which is goal achievement. And then we had
Mm.
like weekly goals that we posted in our Slack channel. So I kind of created a kind of a formula for how I wanted to have my goals, how I wanted to share my goals. So I would break it up into how many meetings that I want to forecast producing that week. Also, like how like I would break it up as well as the category would be meetings, 3, inbound, this many activities, outbound, this many activities, um, also follow up, what I was nurturing, if I was nurturing accounts that haven't turned into meetings or needed to go into second meetings or needed more, and that's the thing, you need follow up.
Yeah.
I feel like in the 5 months I've been a BDR, what I have done, and I've heard this also from my colleagues, is that what I'm doing is not what a standard BDR does. And that has kind
Exactly.
of rubbed some people the wrong way because they feel like, oh, I need to be focusing on this, this, and this. And I'm saying, okay, I can do this. However, if I only do this, I feel like a lot of things fall to the wayside. Like I would always ask questions. What is your expectation for admin? What do you mean admin? Well, if I'm constantly contacting certain people in our cadences or our sequences, and these responders are telling me that someone is no longer there at the
Mhm.
company, and but they're still in my sequence, then it makes sense to me to take them out of my sequence, record it in outreach, and just put a little note on the prospect profile saying no longer with this company as of this date and date when I actually wrote that and update it in outreach. It takes 2 minutes, but it starts to add up. But then I have more time for the more qualified leads. I'm not just having the same person who I know is not in the company
Yep.
popping up in my sequence, whether it be email or whether it be calls, or tasks. And that's something that is highlighted to me. I am someone who's operational and does the admin. For a lot of people, that can seem very tedious, but it can also seem overwhelming. But it's like anything. Your house, your home where you live becomes unruly when you don't do it the basic maintenance. Like
Exactly. That's a good one.
if you don't sweep your floor, that doesn't mean that dust is not going to still accumulate. And that's a personal thing for me. Like My whole thing is I don't like my floor dirty. And I was like, I don't need to sweep for every single time, but you do need to sweep because just because your house isn't dirty doesn't mean that dust won't accumulate. Like life goes on, things happen. So you have to take care of those things. And it's simpler to take care of dust, you know, by sweeping every few days or once a week than waiting for it to accumulate to the point that now you have to backlog and like really do a lot. And that's the thing. So I would ask questions about like what is your expectation for the admin and what is the expectation for this, that, and the other? And it was like, well, that's not really a big deal. And, you know, I found a way to say, well, it matters to me because it allows me to be efficient when I take this and give an example. Like if this person keeps popping up and they are adding to the my number of tasks where it's saying that, you know, this email is undeliverable. So now, you know, it keeps piling up because I
Same thing.
automatically sending it to them, you know, and
Yeah,
it
I
keeps
get it.
popping up as a task for me to call,
Yeah.
and I don't need to call this person, and I don't need to follow up with this person. Like it's a waste of time for people that I know are opening my emails, you know, and need
Yep.
that time. So it's those type of things like the administrative and the operational things, and those things are the glue. That is what allows me to be efficient and effective, and those things are not taught. And those things are also taught for all jobs, but those things are also not highlighted as priority specifically in the BDR job. But I take that upon myself to do those things, to
Yep.
take my notes because it's a part of the change management, you know?
Yeah, it's
It,
innate in you. And, if I could chime in here a little bit,
of
like
course,
what
it's
I
your
always
show.
what I always say is because you left a comment like earlier on, like, this is not, like a normal SDR BDR process, and which I agree. But what's something that's really interesting is what I like to call unicorn reps, right? Everyone knows like startup unicorn over $1 billion. Like there's unicorn reps because they just generate so much money and pipeline and for the organization, right? So they're kind of irreplaceable. But that's kind of what you are, right? Like think about it this way. What you're doing is so much more different than a regular BDR because you understand there's a problem and you're coming up with specific solutions to be successful, right? And it's not only helping you, but I'm guaranteeing it's helping the organization kind of go from like 1 to 10x, right? And so it's just really important to highlight because like on the podcast, we only want to get top performers, and like it's just so good to kind of hear like what you're doing. um and I'm curious, like on your end, Tech Tai, right? Like obviously like you talked about some of these solutions to like the 3 problems you had, but like what are some of these like quantifiable impact, wins and outcomes? I'm curious to kind of see like what you've done. I know you have something, coming in the loops that you'll probably announce to the audience, but I'm curious to see, what you've come out with like outcome wise.
Okay. Well, I thank you once again for the compliment. I mean, this is this is
Compliments,
quite nice on a Friday after a long work week.
Sales
But
Life, compliments by Marcos.
compliments by Marcos. But once again, I remember I come from a place of abundance and not scarcity. So I don't want to be a unicorn rep. Like I have no interest in being a unicorn rep. I don't think that being an SDR and a BDR should be that hard. And right now, it's a role that has the most churn in an organization, but it's also the role that has the most frequency. Like there are more roles to start in the sales funnel to be a BDR, SDR in tech than any other roles, even more so than engineering roles, you know?
Yeah.
But once again, you have that churn because it's sink or swim and you get thrown into this. So I don't want to be a unicorn rep. I want everyone to be able to
Be a
succeed.
unicorn rep.
I guess because once a unicorn, everyone is a unicorn rep. Are you really a unicorn rep? You know, if everyone's special, then are you really special? And I'd rather that because there is enough money, there is enough OTE, there are enough bonuses for everyone. That
Mm,
being said, in terms of answering your question, my solutions and the way I am able to go ahead and have more tactical strategy is by creating those processes and procedures and direct work product to address them. Like I mentioned, the lowest hanging fruit for me was creating, just going after my calendar and setting up my time,
Yeah.
by
Mhm.
starting there. So it's calendar and scheduling management. It's my email inbox management, setting goals and quota attainment. Like I have post-it notes around me, and I have post-it notes that say, okay, if my quota is this much a month, and it's actually changed as of this
Wow.
Monday because I crushed it. So they were like, oh no, we got to think
Gotta
about
change
this
it. You gotta change the quota. That's
the
always what
total
happens.
compensation plan. Like we had to sign a whole new one.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, of course.
entire a whole new one. So what I made last quarter, I mean, I have the skills to continue to meet and exceed quota, but it won't be like what it was when it was like no man's land. We didn't know what was going on. But
Breaking barriers, though. Yeah.
back to that, goal setting and quota attainment. I created a database for my discovery that was searchable via filtering. So, like I said, we have these tools outreach. We also have these tools, Salesforce and everything like that, but it's gold in, gold out. If we only got my organization only got a Salesforce manager and like in my month four. He just started last month, April.
Mm.
So there was information in there from me and my colleague, and prior to me and my colleague.
Yeah.
So he's playing cleanup. He can't really, while he's playing cleanup, he cannot be dynamic in forecasting what we currently need for tomorrow, you know?
Yeah. That
So
makes sense. Yeah.
I realized that the things that I needed to be able to build my campaigns, Salesforce wasn't available to do those things. So I had to build it someplace else. And that someplace else was literally Google Sheets
Yeah.
and using data validation because with with that, I mean, you could create drop down menus. So you can also create check boxes, very simple stuff.
Yeah.
And I use the tools that I had at my disposal. So I also have a wonderful slide, and I am going to
You want to
prepare.
share it? Yeah, that'd be great.
Thank you very much. So when you are ready, I think did you give me the ability to share?
Oh, do I have to? Let's see here.
Oh no, I have it. Just want to make sure.
Okay.
I was
Okay. There
setting
you go.
everything up before.
Let's see your
Can't,
slide.
yeah, can't show you all my business, right? So for those of you that may be concerned about like some of the things that I said, this is me. So Tech Tai's actual name is Tarakwa Nahisi. So nice to meet you all. And this is representative right here, this monthly BDR pipeline generation. So what I was getting to earlier was that yes, I hit 212% of quota with $445,000 in March. And this number is representative of April. We just ended. So I hit 133% of quota in
Wow.
April for $280,000 brought in the month of April in pipeline. Right here to the immediate right is my overall quarterly pipeline.
Mm.
So if 210 is monthly and 3 months is 630, my total was 867. So I brought in approximately 138% of
Wow.
quarterly quota. I think that meeting at minimum meeting and exceeding quota is more than doable with the simple things that I mentioned. Now I having the input of my manager who is structuring certain things, and she's a nice young woman. She's structuring things, but she is holistically a salesperson. She has been a BDR manager for a few years, and she has the skills to manage BDRs. However, to me, she's not very operational, and I still kind of ask her certain questions about how this will work holistically with certain things. you know? And then she's like, oh, that's a really great question. Let me think on that. So like I think of things for the forest. I look at the forest for the trees and the trees for the forest. And I think that sales as a funnel needs to be disrupted because salespeople really only focus on the bottom line, and there is so much more to do dynamically
Yeah.
than focus on the bottom line, you know?
Yeah, and I mean,
I'm
sales
gonna
is
stop
always
sharing. I'm gonna stop
yeah.
sharing right now.
Oh yeah, go ahead, go ahead. I feel like, well, first off, you're a startup, right? So like a lot of things, trial and error, try new
Absolutely.
things. I love this idea of like being organized, what did you say, trees before the forest or something like that, right? But I think kind of as we like wrap this up, like this has been like amazing, right? The problems and solutions you've seen. Where can people get in touch with you? Is that on LinkedIn, or do you have some side projects going on, or like give the audience something to whet their appetite, I guess.
Well, I appreciate you asking that as you wrap this up. So, I am going to share my screen again,
Yeah, go
and
ahead. Yeah,
sharing my screen, I am going to show you. For me, like I said, I don't want to be a unicorn BDR, SDR. I think that there's more than enough for everyone out there. So I think that what I am doing is allowing me to be very efficient and effective. And I think I can see steady and consistent month over month growth. And this experience in the last month, 5 months, and specifically the last 2 months, as I was ramping up to like actually having a quota
Yep.
monthly and leading up to quarterly, I started a new company and it's called, of all things, Organizedly.
Oh, there we go. Organizedly.
Exactly. I don't know if anyone has noticed, but there are a lot of like newer startups in the last 5 years that have like that LY on the
Oh,
end, Earnly and all of this. So I was like,
uh,
hmm.
I used to work for one, Optimizedly.
Exactly. And I didn't want to mention that one, but yes, Optimizedly.
You're
So
like, it's coming. It's coming from Marcos. We already know that.
yes, we already know. So I'll let Marcos do that. So I have a company called Organizedly. And what Organizedly allows you to do is that it just simply I've created some plug and play literal toolkits for you to just copy
Mm,
and utilize yourself. So it's like really simple stuff. So when I talk about the calendar, like I've created a calendar plugin where you go ahead and buy it, you have access to it, and you can literally copy the calendar and input it into your own work calendar and move it around as you want. So in sharing my screen again, I'm going to show you right here. Can you see all of this?
yeah, this is great.
So this is one part of the product. So when you buy, this is just a simple starter kit. This starter kit is really focused on the SDR, the BDR that just got a role and they're excited about it. And this is what you would use when you want to be prepared for day one and ramping up through month 3.
Yeah.
So this is just showing you how to use this board. Trello is a company that I formerly worked at, and it's a really great product. And the thing about Trello is that your Trello board is a blank slate. It could be as organized or as disorganized as you are. It doesn't matter. So I've given instructions on how to use the board, and
Mm.
then also giving you some background of who I am and how I am. So not only do you have access to all of these templates, I can literally create messaging, custom messaging for you
Mm.
and create custom anything for you. I'm already doing it and I've done it for myself, and that turned into Organizedly. So I can do it for you. So I also want to motivate people because, once again, and that's going to be my new tagline, I don't want to be one of a handful of unicorn reps. I want everyone to be a unicorn rep. So I
Love
have some, tips and tricks, things to help you have that growth mindset and manifest things, and videos,
it. Mm.
as well as a templates for like how I set up my goals, like what things I want to look at. I can't give it all away now.
Yeah, you can't give
And
it all away. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I was like, wow, you're gonna show us everything.
and
But This
I,
is
I would
great.
love to, but it's definitely available for purchase. And as I was mentioning before, what people can do is that they can go ahead and send me an email at getorganizedly. Oh, it just went away. Sorry about that.
No
At
worries.
getorganizely@gmail.com. Get organizedly. My site should be up and ready to go by this coming Sunday, and I'll pass that along
Yep.
to Marcos. And once again, you can find me, Tech Tai, on most platforms at Tech Tai or Techie, Techie Tai. And you can contact me at getorganizedly, all one word, at gmail.com, because there's more than enough OTE, more than enough bonuses and spiffs for all of us to succeed and start a career in revenue and grow into AEs,
Yep.
grow into sales engineers, and just grow a career. So, Marcos, I want to thank you again for your time and the opportunity to speak to the awesome people out there. And in this sales life ecosystem, I'm looking forward to seeing everyone succeed and survive, but really thrive in
Yeah.
this sales life. So thank you.
Of course. And just to like wrap it up, Tech Tie has been amazing. Just kind of hearing, all the information, like kind of information overload, but in a sense where it's like valuable information overload, which is just amazing. And yeah, I just love the idea of your abundance mindset, right? I don't want there to be one unicorn rep. I want everyone to be unicorn reps is just like really sticking with me right now. And so kind of like call to action for all of our podcast, listeners is, reach out to Tech Tai on LinkedIn, on her social, whatever, right? And if you're interested, feel free to, go to Get Organizedly. But I think what's most important is the value that you get from today. So if you can say, send Tech Tai a LinkedIn message and say, hey, like you really, resonated with me on this point. I think you would love that. So appreciate you joining the podcast and hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. And once again, so I am not Tech Tai on LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, I am T punto or dot Nikki,
Okay.
my last name. So T for Tai, and then my last name Nehisi, Nehisi, and my name is also listed in my view here in this Zoom call. So once again, do reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm a super connector. I'm at over 9,100 connections. I've been using LinkedIn for a long time. I love it. So T period Nehisi, spelled Nehisi. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. I would love to chat with you and connect with you and see who in my network may be your persona that you want to reach out to. I will reach out to them for you and say, hey, Marcos is doing so and so, and I connect y'all. I will do that. And
The
I have
connector, yeah, that's what we are. That's all we care about. Our communities, connectors. And so Tech Tai, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for hopping on the show. Bye-bye.
Bye, Marcos. Bye, Sales Life.
Thank you for listening to the Sales Life podcast. If you like this episode, please share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure you tune in next week and have a fantastic week.